The warning was clear, repeated 3 times, and logged into the station record. Human personnel are to maintain a minimum distance of 4 meters from the virile cubs at all times. Dr. Hannah Cole heard it and nodded like everyone else. She also ignored it entirely. Not out of defiance. Hannah had spent her entire career following rules, but because rules meant very little when 6 pairs of wide, luminous eyes stared at her every morning like she was the only solid thing in an unstable universe. The virile were new to the station. A powerful, ursine-like species with thick fur, heavy claws, and a rigid pack hierarchy. Adults were formidable. Cubs were unpredictable. Their presence aboard orbital station Halcyon was temporary, part of a delicate diplomatic exchange. That was why security hovered constantly. That was why Hannah's office had been moved farther down the corridor. And that was why everyone panicked when the cubs showed up anyway. Hannah worked in interspecies logistics, paperwork, schedules, supply coordination. Her desk was cluttered with data pads, mugs, and half-finished reports. She was mid-sentence in a report when the first cub climbed onto her desk. No alarms. No warning. Just a heavy thump and a warm, furry weight knocking over her stylus. Hannah blinked. "Oh," she said calmly. "Hello." The cub sniffed her terminal, sneezed, and sat down squarely on her notes. Security arrived seconds later. An officer barked. "Step away from the cub." Hannah didn't move, because the second cub had already climbed into her lap. Chaos followed. 6 virile cubs poured into the office like a furry avalanche. One scrambled up her chair. Another wedged itself under the desk. 2 sprawled across her workspace, tails flicking lazily. Security froze. Weapons stayed holstered, but hands hovered close. "Hannah," the chief of security hissed through clenched teeth, "you need to back away." Slowly. Hannah raised both hands slightly. "I would love to," she said, "but if I move, this one will fall." The cub in question was half asleep, chin resting on her shoulder, breathing slow and content. The officer swallowed. "That cub could break your spine." Hannah smiled faintly. His purring. And he was. A deep, rumbling vibration that traveled through her chest like a heartbeat. The virile handlers arrived moments later, breathless and alarmed. Their expressions shifted from panic to disbelief. "They chose her," one murmured. The lead handler stepped closer, bowing slightly to the cubs. "You must return," she said gently. "This is not a den." None of the cubs moved. One opened a single eye, glanced at her, and deliberately turned its back. The handler stiffened. "That is disrespectful." Hannah cleared her throat. "I think he's just comfortable." The handler stared at her. "You are not virile." "True," Hannah said. "But I make good tea." The incident should have ended there. Protocols demanded separation. Security logs demanded reassignment. Instead, the cubs returned the next day. And the next. Every morning at precisely the same hour, they waddled into Hannah's office, climbed onto her desk, her chair, her lap, and fell asleep. Security tried everything. Barriers. Redirects. Scents meant to discourage them. Nothing worked. The cubs navigated around obstacles with frightening intelligence and zero concern for authority. "They ignore us," a guard muttered. But they listened to her. Hannah had noticed. When she asked them to move, they shifted. When she spoke softly, they calmed. When she worked late, they stayed, even when their handlers called. The station director was unhappy. The truth emerged slowly. The virile cubs were alpha-born, future leaders of their packs. They were being evaluated for adaptability to multispecies environments.
But Halcyon was loud, bright, cold.
Their instincts screamed vigilance. Hannah's office, however, was warm,
Quiet.
predictable. And Hannah herself moved slowly, spoke gently, and never tried to dominate them. She does not challenge, the handler explained during a tense meeting.
Nor does she submit. So what does she do? The director asked.
The handler hesitated. She shares space. The crisis came during a diplomatic inspection. A visiting Virel matron arrived to evaluate the cub's progress.
She entered Hannah's office without warning.
The cubs reacted instantly.
They surrounded Hannah. Not aggressively, protectively.
Growls rumbled low in their chests. Security raised weapons. The matron raised a claw. "Lower them," she commanded. The guards hesitated, but obeyed. The matron studied the scene carefully. The human seated at the center. The cubs pressed against her legs, her chair, her desk. "Human," the matron said, voice deep and resonant. "Why do my cubs claim your territory?"
Hannah swallowed.
"I don't think they see it as territory," she said carefully. "More like a place to rest." The matron tilted her head. "Rest is earned."
Hannah nodded.
"I agree."
Silence stretched.
Then the smallest cub climbed onto Hannah's desk, sat, and placed one paw over Hannah's hand.
The matron inhaled sharply.
"That cub has never done that," she whispered. The evaluation ended early. The matron requested private discussion. What emerged from that meeting changed station policy permanently. The cubs were not being tested properly.
They weren't meant to be hardened yet. They were meant to be grounded.
Alpha strength required confidence, not constant stress. Hannah's office became an official stability zone.
Her desk remained theirs. Security stopped arguing.
They simply posted guards outside and kept the corridor quiet.
Weeks passed.
The cubs grew.
They played.
They learned. They napped through Hannah's reports and meetings, occasionally drooling on her data pads.
Hannah learned to type one-handed.
When the time came for the cubs to leave, the station gathered to watch. The cubs hesitated at the doorway. One by one, they turned back,
Pressed noses into Hannah's side. She crouched, hugging them gently.
"You're going to do great things," she whispered. The largest cub paused, then placed both paws on her desk. Left a deep impression.
A mark. A claim.
Years later, when Virel alphas spoke of their youth, they told a quiet story.
Of a human. Of a desk.
Of a place where strength learned how to rest. And on Halcyon Station, that desk was never replaced.
It stayed exactly where it was.
Scratches, dents, and all. Because once,
security said keep distance.
And the cubs decided otherwise.